Now, Sports Talk with Broads. Here's Hunter Brody.
There is no longer a playoff beard on my face, and I feel like I look like I'm, 12 years old. The Philadelphia Flyers are eliminated in Game 7. And if you came here thinking I was going to be screaming, pissed off, freaking the hell out, I don't feel that way. I honestly don't feel that way. I am upset that they lost Game 7. I don't like the way that it looked. It would be absurd if you liked the way that looked from a Flyers fan perspective. They got out-competed in a Game 7. Maybe it had something to do with having to win back-to-back overtime games, going into double overtime in Game 6. Maybe they were worn out, and that's why the Islanders were able to get the job done. Not that they weren't playing in those games as well, but when your backs are against the wall, down 3-1, there's a different sense of urgency that you have to play with every single game, and that's why it's so damn hard to actually complete the comeback. The Flyers didn't do it. The Vancouver Canucks didn't do it. And who else? The Dallas Stars were able to beat the Colorado Avalanche. So all the teams that were down 3-1 who forced a Game 7, they were not able to execute. And I don't think that that's just irony. I think there's a reason why that happened. So this game was ugly. This series was ugly. And I know fans are frustrated because of the way that it looked. Barry Trotz, the system, the scheme, it made the Flyers look awful. And throughout the regular season this year, the Islanders did a tremendous job at stopping the Flyers. So it could be as simple as just a bad matchup. We see this all the time in basketball where it gets down to the postseason. There's a really solid team that could probably go deeper than they do, but because they match up with a team so poorly, and if they see them earlier in the playoffs, they don't get to go as far. Maybe that's what happened, but here's reality. This Flyers team was one game away from the Eastern Conference Finals. This is why I'm not insanely disgusted with what I saw. They were one game away from the Eastern Conference Finals. Whether they deserved to be or not, they were. And this Flyers team, it grabbed the city. We cared. The emotion that we felt after Game 6 when Ivan Provorov scored, when was the last time the Flyers gave us a moment like this? They matter. And you can't compare when it comes to what round you lost in to basketball, even though I just used it when it comes to matchups. But when you describe hockey and basketball when it comes to matchups, it's not the same when it comes to what round you lost in the playoffs. Because in basketball, it's about having that one insane superstar that could take you to the next level. Kawhi, LeBron James, Kevin Durant, Steph Curry. It's not the same way in hockey. You can have no superstar and win the cup. You could be the St. Louis Blues and win the cup. You could be the LA Kings, an 8th seed, and win the cup. It's different in hockey. The fact that the Flyers are in a spot where they're in the second round and in Game 7, if you get to that spot consistently, well, there's going to be years where you get over the hump. Now you're in the Eastern Conference Finals. Then who knows what can happen. You can make runs if you are a team that can get so deep in the second round. It's not ridiculous to think that the team can turn the page. But there's so much youth on this team that it leaves me optimistic. If you look at what we just saw throughout this season and the playoff run, if you wanted to go down the roads of, hey, let's look at the positives and let's look at the negatives, your positives are going to outweigh the negatives by millions, by literally millions. There's so many positives to take away from this year. You have Alain Vigneault, a coach that, even though I thought Barry Trotz was the better coach, that's not saying that Alain Vigneault isn't a good coach. He's had success in this league for a reason. Chuck Fletcher, a GM. The structure is what I'm getting at here. There's structure with the Flyers. So Travis Sanheim, he had some upsetting moments in this playoff series. Turnovers in the D zone, some sloppy play, along with his D partner, Phil Myers. They're so young. Ivan Provorov is so young. Travis Konechny, frustrating, no doubt. He was your best scorer all year, and in the playoffs, he wasn't able to score, but he's so young. They need to utilize this and grow from it. Carter Hart is special. If you don't see that Carter Hart is an elite goaltender in this league, then you don't understand hockey. So with that being said, you now have the backbone of what every NHL team has when they win a Stanley Cup. When teams win Stanley Cups, you talk about the goaltending. Well, guess what? The Flyers have a 22-year-old stud in between the pipes. If you don't see the promise, if you don't see the positive trajectory, then shame on you. So I think it is fair to be upset with the dud. They lost 4-0 in a Game 7. They actually started the game out hot. I thought Couturier, Voracek, Giroux had some good scoring chances. They actually hit the post moments into the game, and when you see that Greiss is starting in net and not Varlamov, you thought, okay, pepper the goalie, throw a lot of shots on. They didn't do that. As soon as Mayfield scored, the deflation was in play. The Flyers seemed to lose a step. It was all Islanders from there, and it's disappointing. I get it. From a Game 7 standpoint, it's very disappointing, but when you put everything in perspective and you look at how they had to force Game 7 and what they went through, this team is promising. Oscar Lindblom, not just his story and what he did to overcome what he did, which is insane. You overcome cancer, you come back and play in the playoffs. That's incredible. But what about just him? Not to downplay that, by the way. It's absurdly phenomenal. One of the best stories I've ever even seen in sports history outside of, I'm not talking like championship story runs and all that. I'm talking about individual overcoming adversity stories. It's tremendous. But how about him as the player? How about what he was doing before all of this happened? He was a great player for this team. He was scoring goals. He was being a factor. He was effective. He helped the depth. They returned with Oscar Lindblom. There is structure here with this organization that should leave you absolutely 100% intrigued. And I know the conversation about the veterans is a conversation that people want to go down. It's a conversation that people would like to bring up, and I think I will right after you hear a word from my sponsor. This episode is sponsored by Orbit Energy and Power. They are home to your solar experts. With over 20 experience in the industry, they are trained to make sure that you get the best deal. They are dedicated to making sure your project is completed easily and properly by using high-quality materials and trained professionals to get the job done right. They provide water purification systems, solar energy systems, backup energy services, battery storage, tree removals, electrical upgrades, HVAC, and more. Their information is in the description. All right, so Giroux, Voracek, Couturier. Did they get outplayed by Barzal, Eberle, Anders Lee, Pajo? They did. They did. They absolutely 100% did. The strip to see, Giroux's a problem, that conversation, it's so overblown. Will they make some sort of moves with some veterans? I don't know. Claude Giroux has a no-trade clause, and he's here for a couple more years. To me, Claude Giroux is not the reason why this team lost this series. You want to know why I thought the team lost this series? It's all of them. While I think he needed to play better, so did Couturier, so did Voracek, so did Travis Konechny, so did some of these other players who stepped up in the regular season and then cooled off when the postseason happened. Travis Sanheim, Philip Myers, Matt Niskanen, and Ivan Provorov were problems in games, big-time problems. One of the reasons why they lost the game in this specific series. So many people you can say they did not live up to their expectations this playoff series. But I'm here to say this team will grow from that. But in terms of the veterans who you would expect already grew from moments, right? I mean, you would expect guys like Claude Giroux to know by now. You would expect Voracek to know by now. It's not so much, hey, Joel Farabee, who's another one I failed to mention, who's young and is upcoming. He learned from playing the Islanders in a tough battle in the postseason, right? Two different scenarios, and I can get behind it. But I don't think that this team is doomed because of Claude Giroux. They can make additions. They can make moves. They can continue to make changes to this roster. and be okay. No one expects Claude Giroux to be Alex Ovechkin, to be Sidney Crosby, to be those type of players. He's not a Nathan McKinnon. He's not those type of players. But that doesn't mean the secondary guys, the second tier of guys underneath of them can't win anything. Malkin is in the second tier of players. He's not a Crosby. He's not a McDavid. Jamie Benn, right? There's an example of another player who's not in the top tier. Can you be effective with the Jamie Benn? Sure, he's in the Western Conference Finals as we speak. There's plenty of second-tier players that you can totally be successful with. Claude Giroux's in that category, and that's what it is. There's this heavy, insane look at G as if he's the reason why this team hasn't been successful. No. That's not the case. They didn't call up their young players. Look at the difference when their young players actually get called up. Ron Hextall wasn't doing that. They had Dave Haxtell as the coach. Look at the difference of getting a head coach and a GM that calls up their players. Now the team looks completely different. They have a goaltender. They went through 8 goaltenders last season. There's a difference. And I don't want to make this a Claude Giroux thing. I do think he needs to play better, but so does everyone. Everyone needed to play better. The coach needed to be better. Everyone. Michel Therrien, the power play coach, needed to be better. Every single person in this organization needs to be better. But here's the positive spin on it. They're trending in the right direction. It's fair to say that they're not bad and they're not a Stanley Cup playoff team right now. But they are moving towards that. They're moving towards that. So how can you be insanely devastated? I talked about the power play, by the way. 0-13 in this series and 4 for 52 in the bubble as a whole. I thought they had a good power play this game early on, and it was the second unit that was out there. It wasn't even that tremendous, to be fair, but it was the best one I've seen in quite a long time. You cared about the Flyers' season this year. You cared about this playoff run. Doesn't that say something? It's not. See, this is where I have a disconnect with some sports fans, some Philadelphia sports fans out there. If you don't win the Stanley Cup, if you don't win the championship, it's a failure. Well, that's not true. It's not true at all. When you're a team that hasn't won a playoff round in so many damn years, and then you finally win one, and then you get to Game 7 of the second round, how is that a failure? It's not. Would I have liked them to look better? Would I have liked them to get more shots, enter the zone more, have better flow to their offense? Absolutely. I think the Islanders had a reason why that happened, and same with the Canadiens. I think the Canadiens did a good job at stopping the Flyers. The fact that they didn't even play their best, let's be real, they didn't play their best, and it still went 7. Now, why is that? First thing to everyone's mind is probably Carter Hart. Well, there you go. That's perfect. If you want to go down that road, that's perfect. What does that tell you then? You have the most important piece in hockey on your roster. And he's not going anywhere. And he's so young. You're in good shape. You're in fantastic shape, actually. You might be in the best shape in terms of goaltending at anybody else in the damn league. Vancouver with Thatcher Demko, that story's insane. But your takeaway needs to be positive. Needs to be. I'm sure there's going to be a shakeup, and I'm okay with the shakeup. I'm okay with maybe mixing in a new veteran, adding some pieces, doing whatever you need to do. I'm cool with mixing things up. Trying something new. But I don't think that you should be to the point of just defeated, crushed, miserable with how this entire series played out. Specifically Game 7, if you want to be negative towards specifically Game 7, by all means, I guess I can't tell you not to be because you're entitled to your own feeling. You're entitled to feel that way. You're entitled to your opinion. I think what happened was how much effort they had to put in once down 3-1 was too much for them to overcome. Now, why were they down 3-1? They didn't have to be down 3-1. They could have made sure it wasn't 3-1. They put themselves in that position. I get it. I'm not taking that away from the equation. I think that that's a valuable point in this topic. But they had to play the hands that they were dealt. They were dealt that hand after playing poorly throughout the first 4. But, I'm sorry. I really can't be disgusted. And I don't know if this is a common way to feel. I don't know if this is the outlier, but this is how I feel. This is how it hits me. Not happy. Once I saw the score 2-0, one of those, I know they're not coming back because they can't generate enough plays offensively. And if they get the power play, who the hell cares? So I knew it. It was a reality at one point once they were down 2-0. It really was. But I'm staying positive. Speaking of Carter Hart, though, I do want to mention a couple things because by no means am I going to absolutely destroy him for this game. I did think, though, that the first 2 goals probably should have been stopped. Was there some atrocious play in the D zone? Yep, I'm acknowledging that. The first goal, though, Mayfield, he had a ton of space to walk in. He had a ton of time to pick his spot. Carter Hart makes that save, though. Carter Hart is so good. He makes that save. Now, it was a good shot. It was placed well. It had some velocity on it. But Carter Hart makes that stop. So when I know that he makes that type of stop, that's why when I see it happen, it's, damn, Carter, you got to have that one. And then the second goal where Green, come on, man, this guy's just a so old veteran with the gray beard. Ugh, hate the face. But he didn't see the pass over. There was a screen involved. The pass went over to Green, but he was nowhere to be found. There were other players involved with the miscues. I'm acknowledging that. But I still thought that Carter Hart should have had those too. Now, after that, he was making stellar saves. He was keeping the Flyers in it. He never quit. So I'm not ridiculing him to the point of going, can't believe Carter Hart in Game 7. But that first period, I thought there were a couple slip-ups by Carter, and that's the type of moments that he needs to learn from. I did question headed into the bubble, him going out there and playing. How much can he learn from this? He was so good at home, so bad on the road during the regular season. I needed him to feel that atmosphere on the road in the playoffs. I needed him to hear the boos, be on the road, have these high, intense games, the atmosphere being legit and tough for him to play in. That's what I needed him to experience as a netminder in the postseason. I still think he takes a lot away from this, but it's not the same as he would have in a normal spot, in a normal situation, when there is no COVID-19. Still plenty to take away from when it comes to the intensity and the pressure and how much each game matters, how much each shot matters, how much all of this truly matters when things intensify, when things are focused on more, the binoculars are on more. I think he's going to get a lot to take out of it, but maybe not as much as a normal playoff run would give him. But long term, I'm still pumped up for him and still pumped up for what he is going to grow into because I already know that it's going to be something special. The third goal that they scored, disappointing. Giroux turns the puck over in the offensive zone. Provorov seemed to fall at the blue line. I don't know where Voracek was for a little bit of help, a little bit of support, but he couldn't get back. And there's a 2-on-1 with Niskanen left in the dust. And boom, just like that, you make one pass and it beats Carter Hart. Not his fault in that scenario. It was just a really good play by the Islanders. When they get their chances, they cash in. That's what they do. They wait for their counterattack. I like to compare it to soccer because that's what happens in soccer. Guys, they play their system, they play their formation, and when they get a chance to counter and they go down the other way on the field, boom, there you go. They cash in. They have that rush. And the Islanders play a very similar style of when they get that counterattack, boom, they go out there and they make it happen. I'm really curious to see how they play against the Tampa Bay Lightning and how they look against the Lightning, because that might show you more about the Flyers. I think seeing context, seeing how they play against the Lightning will tell you a story about this Flyers team. 7 games against the Islanders, it's tough. I don't want to hear about the 1 seed with the Flyers because that was flawed due to the round robin. They're not truly a 1 seed. They're not on the same level as the Lightning and the Boston Bruins. They're not on that same level. Even though the Bruins lost, they just had a tough matchup against the Lightning early. Like I said, sometimes it's just unlucky matchups that screw you, and it doesn't allow you to go as far as you possibly could. And by the way, their goaltender opted out of the season, and that was a big-time difference maker as well when you have Halak in net instead of Tuukka Rask. But they didn't have the same type of firepower as some of these other teams. Being a 1 seed was somewhat faulty. And where the Islanders landed, and with their regular season record, I didn't think that truly showed what type of team they were. They're better than what their record showed. And if you watch the Islanders and you know about their style of play, and you know about Barry Trotz and their studs up front, you would know that heading into this series. But we'll see how it plays out against the Lightning. Let's listen to a couple phone calls here from the 24/7 Anytime Hotline. The phone number is 856-442-9805. But before we do, I have a new partner who I'm planning to do some cool stuff with throughout the season. I'm teaming up with Philly's own Stateside vodka. Stateside is the fastest growing craft spirit in Pennsylvania and the first vodka on the market to actively hydrate the consumer with an electrolyte composition. What's better than this? Stateside is headquartered in Old Kensington, Philadelphia. It's 7 times distilled, certified gluten-free, and top-of-the-line premium vodka. You know I love supporting Philly and locally owned businesses, which is why I'm so excited about Stateside vodka. So next time you're thinking about buying Tito's, which operated in Cowboys country down in Texas, think to yourself, do I love the Eagles or the Cowboys? We know the answer. There's no better vodka than Stateside. It's award-winning and Philly-produced. Go to statesidevodka.com for 10% off the best vodka out there with promo code BROATS for pickup or delivery. Yes, they deliver to counties of Philadelphia, Chester, Delaware, Montgomery, Bucks, Westmoreland, and Allegheny. Remember, promo code BROATS, 10% off Stateside vodka. All right, let's kick off these phone calls.
Well, let's get right to it. First of all, congratulations to the Islanders. They were the better team in this series, and when you win a 7th game, you prove that. As for tonight, I can only describe tonight's effort as pure urine. I mean, a pathetic, embarrassing, disgusting performance on full display before a nationwide television audience, and a shit way to end the season from a fan standpoint. No fight, no heart whatsoever. What do we do moving forward? I think you've got to, if you're Chuck Fletcher, try to add some dynamic young talent into this lineup from outside the organization. Maybe a Johnny Gaudreau, whose name has been bandied about. And for the love of God, you've got to add physicality to this team. Tampa Bay learned that from last year and added guys like Pat Maroon, and look where they're at. The Flyers need to do the same thing, because pussy hockey, which was on display tonight, does not work in the Stanley Cup playoffs.
I can get behind what you're saying. Maybe a little bit more harsh than I would say. It was embarrassing. It was pathetic. Don't get me wrong, but I don't know if it was, or at least this is how I feel. I don't know if I was as brutally hurt as maybe you were during the game, because it does seem like they left a mark on you a bit. It does seem like they really punched you in the gut, and I do have the punch gut feeling, just not to an obnoxious degree. And I wonder if I'm in the minority. Am I the different one here? Do most people feel that way? I just think if you told me before the season started, Broads, you get a Game 7 in the second round and you see what happens, and I would sign up for it any day of the week. Where do I sign? This team has not been relevant. And I like what you bring up when it comes to maybe going outside of the organization. They do need to find a goal scorer. They don't have a goal scorer. They had a ton of guys this year that scored some goals, but they don't have a goal scorer, a guy to go to really put it in. Travis Konechny, it wasn't like he was that crazy at scoring goals this year. I think he finished with 24. There's guys out there who put 50 in. We don't have anything close to that. Now, they don't grow on trees, and guess what? If teams do have them, they're not just giving them up. So it's not an easy find, but they do need to find it. And players like Maroon, a little physicality, I like that. That's an upgrade to a Nate Thompson-type role, right? I'm okay with that stuff, but right now it's hard for me to think down the road of, hey, what should they do in the offseason? I'm trying to digest the positives of this season because, to me, it's a positive. You want to look at the negatives? Sure. I'm not saying you specifically, Sean, the caller, but in general. You want to look at the negatives? Go ahead. But please, counter that with the positives, and there'll be a list that's quadruple the amount, if not more.
Sad to see it end, but I honestly can't say I'm surprised. With that terrible of a power play and not shooting, you're not going to get far. The Islanders were the much better team. Even in the games they lost, they still look better than the Flyers. From here, try to put this behind you and use it to motivate you in the off season, right? I want to see Vigneault working on the power play. That's the biggest thing I want to see them change. I want to see them working on shooting the puck. Maybe they have to relearn how to do that because they seem to have forgotten how to do it in the latter stages of the playoffs. And I want to see them do a little more conditioning. You can't just go one period and die out. You saw the Islanders were the much stronger team overall, but especially physically, not fighting-wise, just fitness-wise. They were the much faster and more dominant team the whole time.
That's a good call. It's a good call. You mentioned the whole physical thing. That just reminded me of the fight between Lawton and Pajo. Look, I'm not one of those people that scream, oh, you got to bring fighting back in the league. I'm not one of those people that hate fights. I think that where they are now when it comes to fights is the perfect level of fighting. It's not 1970 anymore, but still have fighting in the league. I'm okay with where it's at now. There was no reason for Pajo to drop the mitts. It's a 3-0 game at the time. Why would you even give the Flyers any sort of life? There's no reason at all. Now, it wasn't one of those goon, big-time punches, obnoxious, game-changing energy type fights, but still, there should be no reason. If the Flyers were up 3-0 and someone fought, I would be truly disgusted. There's an art to it. There's a reason to do it. Now, the Flyers, they had a reason to do it, but if you're up 3-0, it doesn't make any sense at all. What's the bonus? What's the positive of that? I just told you to outweigh the pros and cons of this season. Well, outweigh the pros and cons in a fight if you're up 3-0. The pros, you win a fight. The negative, you lose the fight. You get injured big time. The other team can come back. You can swing momentum. I was shocked from Pajo, too. Just an interesting thing. I guess one of those moments where it just happened.
Yo, bro, it's Carmen from Scranton. And while, yes, I am very disappointed in the team's effort and the fact that we got eliminated this evening, you cannot say that this season was not a success. We came in to this season with a new coach, new GM, and a lot of question marks. We have a young and emerging core. We have a legitimate franchise goaltender for the first time in forever. And we have one of the best prospect systems in the entire league. The future is bright. Tonight hurts, but I think we'll have better results in the future.
I couldn't agree more. And another name I failed to mention throughout all this, Kevin Hayes. He's going to be here for a long time, and there were plenty of moments throughout this playoff series where he was very noticeable. He was very strong. He was a difference maker, and he signed here to be a big-time piece, a top 6 center, a top 6 forward, a top 2 center, getting that center depth. Kevin Hayes is going to be a big key piece to this team moving forward, and I can get behind that. I can support that. He's the type of player that has success. He's a winning type player. The roster is built to succeed. It really is.
You know, Broads, I could go for the old-fashioned Philadelphia sports fan. Everybody needs to be fired. We need to strip Giroux of the sea. We need to trade Voracek and all of that. But honestly, I'm not going to do that. What I am going to do is just appreciate the fantastic years that the Orange and Black gave us. No one expected us to go this far. When we just so happened to be beaten by a better team, just a better overall team, and I have no shame in admitting that. I don't care if we were the number one seed. They certainly didn't play like the number one seed once the playoffs started. I'm just overall a little bit. I'm very disappointed, but at the same time, I'm very grateful for the season that these guys have given us. Things in the off season, got to get the power play right, and let's just see how they do in the future with actual expectations to compete now.
That's a great point. I love the way that you put that, really. That's the best way to describe it, and I think you nailed it. So after hearing some of these phone calls, it does seem like the gist of at least these callers is somewhat down the same road as I am going. Not happy with Game 7's specific outcome. Not happy with their effort in Game 7, but appreciate it because they were meaningful. They were meaningful games. They got you invested. Think about how you felt after Game 6 and waiting for Saturday at 7:30 for Game 7. And I know that's not the goal. Bros, the goal is not to be excited. I get it. But when you haven't been for so damn long, the fact that you now are shows me that this is the right way to go. This is the right way to go. The alternative is to still not care about the team. So there it is. The season is officially over for the Orange and the Black. Now we await what's next. When does the next season start? When does the free agency period begin? What do the Flyers do to add? Because while this was awesome, I do think that the season and just in general, this season was fun and they gave you some life. I do think that Chuck Fletcher, Lane Vigneault, they put their heads together and go, okay, hold on. We got to make some moves. We got to make some changes. We got to adjust because while it was fun, there's still some things to do to put this team over the edge. So let's see how they handle it, and thank you all so much. I will see you next time.